talk to me a little bit about Korea. I keep hearing all the fear, there's going to be a war, there's going to be a war, there's going to be a war.
There's not going to be a war.
How do you know? The man's
There's not
itching.
gonna
I
be a
keep
war.
hearing he wants to.
Which one, the man in Korea or the man in Washington?
Why? Will there be military action?
No.
Why not?
I don't think anyone ultimately wants it. There could be a miscalculation. That's how we got World War I. Various miscalculations in the parts of the players. We obviously have to be concerned about that. There's three parts to this. There's Korea, there's China, and there's the U.S. The U.S. is extremely worried about Korean missiles that will be able to hit the U.S., starting with Hawaii and then, of course, the mainland. Obviously, we have a problem with Korea's bellicose behavior. The Chinese provide 90% of the raw materials that the Koreans import. They take in 90% of the exports of North Korea. They don't particularly like the regime, but they do not want North Korea to collapse and reunify with the South. That would bring a pro-Western government with a large military right on their border. So that's why the Chinese have moved 300,000 of their best troops to the North Korean border. It's a symbol to the U.S. Whatever happens, we're not giving North Korea up. So the question becomes, what can we do to press the Chinese to prod the North Koreans into changing without getting the Chinese to think that their prodding is going to cause a collapse of the regime, folding them into the arms of South Korea? What the Chinese might be willing to do is have a Finlandized, neutral, non-military North Korea, disarmed North Korea if the government collapses. That's very hard to stage, manage, or plan in advance. These are very complicated things. I'll tell you what I think we're going to do ultimately. 15 years ago, George W. Bush, for about 2 years, really put pressure on the North Koreans, because the North Korean regime is not really a government, it's a mafia. They make their money through prostitution overseas, they make their money through counterfeiting American currency, they make their money through illicit banking activity, they sell drugs, they sell arms around the world, they sell nuclear weaponry around the world. So they're basically a criminal gang trying to bring in enough foreign currency to keep the whole show going in Pyongyang. We cut back on their ability to use Chinese banks, to use banks in Macau and Hong Kong. We trapped many of their diplomats in money laundering schemes and shut them down. We prevailed upon governments from Thailand to Malaysia to crack down on the North Korean embassies that were doing illicit business out of the embassies. And the North Koreans were screaming. They were screaming because they were losing real money. And there was danger that they weren't able to get getting the foreign exchange that they needed to keep their regime going. Then Condoleezza Rice changed everything and said, oh, well, now it's time to negotiate. Now that we've gotten their attention, now it's time to negotiate. That was 10 years ago. The negotiations have been a complete failure. You can't trust a criminal gang. It's like going to the Godfather and expecting the Godfather to be a statesman. It doesn't happen.